She rushed her only daughter to the pediatric clinic. Shocked when she saw who walked through the door. The door opened, and Claudine Howard looked up expecting a stranger. Instead, she found herself staring at the man who had destroyed her life 7 years ago. Harold Robinson stood frozen in the doorway, his white coat pristine, his stethoscope draped around his neck, his face a mask of professional composure that shattered the moment their eyes met. Claudine. His voice was barely a whisper. Her name a ghost on his lips. Dr. Robinson. Her response came out cold as winter stone, sharp as broken glass. My daughter has a fever. I need a doctor, not a reunion. The words hit him visibly. She watched him flinch, watched his eyes move from her face to the child on the examination table, watched the moment he started doing the math he was 7 years too late to calculate. Because lying on that table, feverish and confused, was 7-year-old Haley. With her mother's rich brown skin and stubborn chin. With her father's unmistakable dark eyes. With the distinctive dimple in her left cheek that marked her as Robinson through and through. Harold's face went pale. His hand gripped the doorframe like it was the only thing keeping him upright. She's mine. It wasn't a question. It was the sound of a world collapsing. Biologically, yes. Claudine's voice carried an edge sharp enough to draw blood. In every other way that matters, that remains to be seen. 7 years. His voice cracked on the words. 7 years, Claudine. Why didn't you tell me? You want to have that conversation now? Here. In front of her. Claudine gestured toward Haley, who was watching this exchange with the focused attention of a child who had learned early to read adults carefully. Because I can give you the answer, but it won't be pretty, and she's sitting right there listening to every word. Harold looked at Haley. Really looked at her. And something in his expression broke open, grief and wonder and desperate hope colliding in ways that made Claudine's chest ache despite her determination to feel nothing. I didn't know. His voice was raw, devastated. I swear to you, Claudine, I didn't know she existed. And whose fault is that? The words came out sharper than she intended. You left. You vanished without explanation. Your family's lawyer showed up with a check and a non-disclosure agreement. I was supposed to disappear quietly. So I did. That's not what happened. Harold stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. I never sent anyone to you. I never left willingly. My father had me committed to a treatment facility in Switzerland. He told me you'd moved on, that you'd taken the money and wanted nothing to do with me. By the time I got out and came looking for you, you were gone. No forwarding address. No trace. Nothing. Claudine stared at him, her carefully constructed narrative of the past 7 years suddenly cracking at the foundation. Mama? Haley's small voice cut through the tension. Who is this doctor? Why does he seem so sad? The question hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Claudine looked at her daughter, at the innocent confusion in her eyes, and felt the weight of 7 years of secrets pressing down on her chest. He's someone I knew a long time ago, baby. Claudine kept her voice gentle despite the earthquake inside her. We're just surprised to see each other. Haley considered this with the philosophical acceptance of a child who had already learned that the world was complicated. Then she looked at Harold with those eyes that were unmistakably his. Are you going to make me feel better? My head hurts and everything feels too hot. Harold took a breath. And Claudine watched him transform before her eyes. Not into a different person, but into a focused, competent physician who approached the examination table with gentle authority. I'm going to do my very best, he said softly, crouching to Haley's eye level. I'm Dr. Robinson. Can you tell me exactly what hurts? And just like that, the man who had shattered Claudine's world became the only person who could help her daughter. The irony was not lost on her. Nothing in her life ever was. But to understand how Claudine ended up in this impossible moment, we need to go back to that morning. To the moment everything started unraveling. The fever had come without warning. One moment, 7-year-old Haley was laughing at the breakfast table, spreading strawberry jam across her toast with the focused precision of an artist completing her masterpiece. Her dark curls bounced as she hummed a song she'd learned at school, something about rainbows and friendship that Claudine had heard approximately 400 times in the past week. The kitchen smelled of coffee and warm bread, the morning sun streaming through the windows of their Charleston home, casting golden light across the worn wooden table where they shared every meal. This was their ritual. Their sacred space. Mother and daughter against the world, just like it had been since the beginning. Can I have more orange juice, Mama? Haley asked, her spoon pausing midway to her mouth. May I? Claudine corrected gently, reaching for the pitcher. And yes, you may. May I have more orange juice please, Haley repeated with exaggerated patience, the way children do when they think adults are being unnecessarily particular about words. Claudine poured the juice, watching her daughter with the kind of attention that had become second nature. 7 years of single motherhood had taught her to notice everything. The slight flush on Haley's cheeks. The way her movements seemed slower than usual. The glassiness beginning to creep into her bright eyes. Baby, are you feeling okay? I'm fine, Mama. Haley took a bite of toast, chewing with less enthusiasm than usual. Just tired. Can I stay home from school today? You have that spelling test, remember? The one you've been practicing for all week. Haley nodded, but something in the movement seemed off. Too slow. Too heavy. And then, between one breath and the next, everything changed. The toast slipped from Haley's fingers. She slumped sideways, her small body folding against Claudine's shoulder like a flower wilting in fast forward. Heat radiated from her skin, sudden and fierce, a furnace igniting where her healthy daughter had been just moments before. Mama. Haley's voice came out thin as paper. Everything feels spinny. Claudine's heart seized in her chest. That particular kind of terror only mothers know, the kind that transforms ordinary women into creatures of pure protective instinct. She pressed her palm against Haley's forehead and felt the fire burning beneath her daughter's skin. The thermometer confirmed what her hand already knew. 104 degrees. The numbers blinked their accusation in angry red, turning an ordinary Tuesday morning into a medical emergency. Claudine moved with the efficiency of someone who had learned to handle crises alone. Shoes on. Jacket grabbed. Haley bundled into the back seat of the silver Volvo that had carried them through 7 years of single parenthood. Stay awake for me, baby. Claudine's voice was steady despite the earthquake inside her as she pulled out of the driveway. Talk to me about something. Tell me about that story you're writing. The one about the princess who builds castles out of clouds. Haley's voice drifted from the back seat, dreamy and distant in a way that made Claudine press harder on the accelerator. That's the one. What happens next in the story? The princess is looking for someone. Haley's words came slowly, each one requiring effort. Someone who got lost a long time ago. Claudine's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Even fevered and confused, her daughter had an uncanny ability to say things that cut straight to bone. The streets of Charleston blurred past, Spanish moss-draped oaks casting shadows across the road, the historic district giving way to newer developments as Claudine navigated toward the Magnolia Children's Clinic. She'd chosen this clinic specifically, years ago, because of its reputation for excellence and its distance from the downtown medical center. Downtown, where she might run into people who remembered her as the girl who had been abandoned by Charleston's most eligible bachelor. The irony of that choice was about to become devastatingly clear. What about the person who got lost? Claudine asked, keeping Haley talking, keeping her daughter tethered to consciousness. Does the princess find them? I don't know yet. Haley's voice was fading. I haven't finished writing that part. Well, when you feel better, you can tell me how it ends. The Magnolia Children's Clinic appeared ahead, a converted Victorian mansion on the edge of the historic district. Its wraparound porch and soft blue shutters were designed to make frightened children feel less like patients and more like guests. Claudine had always appreciated that about this place. The attention to comfort. The understanding that healing happened better in spaces that didn't feel like hospitals. She pulled into the parking lot and gathered Haley in her arms, grateful that at 7, her daughter was still light enough to carry. Though not for much longer. Every year, Haley grew more, became more, transformed into a person distinct from the baby Claudine had held alone in that hospital room 7 years ago. The front doors opened into a waiting room that smelled of antiseptic and the faint sweetness of the lollipops they kept behind the reception desk. A combination that somehow managed to be both sterile and comforting. My daughter has a high fever. Claudine addressed the receptionist, a kind-faced woman with reading glasses perched on her nose. It came on suddenly. 104. She's disoriented. The receptionist's expression sharpened with professional concern. Let me get you into an exam room right away. Dr. Robinson will be with you in just a moment. Dr. Robinson. The name meant nothing to Claudine. Just another pediatrician in a city full of them. She had no way of knowing that those 2 words were about to detonate a bomb that would reshape her entire existence. She followed a nurse down a hallway decorated with murals of friendly animals. Elephants in tutus. Giraffes wearing bow ties. The kind of whimsical imagery designed to distract children from the reality of why they were there. Haley's head lolled against Claudine's shoulder, her breathing shallow but steady. The examination room was painted the soft yellow of morning sunshine. A small table held children's books with well-worn covers. A wall-mounted television played a muted cartoon, colors flickering silently across the screen. It was a room designed for comfort, for safety, for the kind of care that made scary things less frightening. Claudine settled Haley onto the examination table, brushing damp hair from her forehead, whispering reassurances that felt inadequate against the magnitude of her fear. "It's okay, baby. The doctor will be here soon. You're going to be fine. Promise?" Haley's eyes fluttered open, glassy but focused on her mother's face. "Promise." Claudine pressed a kiss to her daughter's forehead, feeling the fever heat against her lips. "I've got you. I've always got you." The nurse took Haley's vitals with practiced efficiency, noting numbers on a chart, her expression professionally neutral in a way that gave nothing away about whether those numbers were concerning. "The doctor will be right in." She offered Claudine a reassuring smile. "She's in good hands. Dr. Robinson is the best pediatrician in the state." Claudine nodded, not really listening. She was cataloging symptoms, running through every possible cause, doing what she always did when faced with uncertainty. Trying to control the uncontrollable through sheer force of knowledge. She had built her entire life around control. Around never being surprised, never being vulnerable, never being caught off guard by circumstances beyond her ability to manage. 7 years of single motherhood had made her an expert at anticipating problems before they arose. But there was no way to anticipate what happened next. The door opened. "Good morning. I'm Dr. Robinson. I understand we have a young lady who's not feeling well." The voice was professional, confident, carrying the easy authority of someone who was very good at their job. Claudine turned, ready to deliver a medical history, ready to advocate for her daughter, ready to be the competent, in-control mother she had taught herself to be. And the world fell away. He stood in the doorway wearing a white coat over slate-gray slacks, a stethoscope draped around his neck, looking nothing like the 24-year-old heir to the Robinson textile fortune who had shattered her heart 7 years ago. And exactly like him at the same time. Harold Robinson. The man who had promised her forever and then vanished without explanation. The man whose family had built half of Charleston's waterfront. The man who had left her pregnant and alone and absolutely determined to survive without him. He was a doctor now. A pediatrician. In the clinic where she had brought their daughter. The daughter he had never known existed. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The cartoon continued its silent antics on the television screen. Haley shifted on the examination table, mumbling something about cloud castles. And Claudine felt every wall she had spent 7 years constructing begin to tremble. This was the moment. The collision she had spent 7 years avoiding. The truth she had buried so deep she had almost convinced herself it didn't exist. Harold Robinson was looking at his daughter for the first time. And he had no idea she was his. But that was about to change. Before I continue with what happened next in that examination room, I need to pause and speak directly to you. This is the moment where everything changes. Not just for Claudine and Harold, but for a 7-year-old girl who is about to discover that the father she has imagined her whole life is standing right in front of her. If you have ever wondered whether secrets eventually find their way to the surface. If you have ever asked yourself whether the people who hurt us can truly change. If you have ever believed that second chances exist for those brave enough to earn them. Then this story is for you. I am going to take you through every twist, every revelation, every moment of this journey. But I need something from you first. If you are already feeling invested in Claudine's story, hit that like button right now. Share this with someone who believes in the power of redemption. Or with someone who needs to hear that survival can become something beautiful. And if you have not subscribed to Mr. Dawson's Stories yet, click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Because trust me, you will not want to miss how this story unfolds. Now let us get back to that examination room where Harold Robinson just discovered he has a 7-year-old daughter. The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled too tight, ready to snap at the slightest pressure. Harold's eyes moved from Claudine's face to Haley and back again, doing calculations that were 7 years too late. The dates. The timeline. The undeniable resemblance staring up at him from that examination table. I should get another doctor. His voice came out rough, unsteady. You shouldn't have to deal with this right now. No. The word escaped Claudine sharper than she intended. She heard herself speaking, heard the cold authority in her own voice, and recognized it as the armor she had spent years forging. You're here. She's sick. Fix her. Then we can talk about what shouldn't have happened. It was a challenge. A dare. She was testing him, wanting to see if he could separate the professional from the personal. If he could be what Haley needed even as the revelation of her existence clearly unmade him. Harold took a breath. Then another. And then something in his posture shifted. The devastated man in the doorway became a focused physician, his training overriding his emotional chaos. He approached the examination table with gentle authority, crouching to Haley's eye level. His movements were careful, deliberate, nothing that would frighten a sick child. "Hey there, sweetheart." His voice softened into something warm and reassuring. "I'm Dr. Robinson. I hear you're not feeling so great today. Can you tell me what hurts? Everything feels too hot." Haley's voice was small but clear. "And my head is heavy like it's full of rocks." "That sounds really uncomfortable." Harold's tone carried genuine sympathy. "I'm going to check a few things, okay? It might feel a little weird, but it won't hurt. Your mom is right here the whole time." Claudine watched from the corner of the room, arms crossed over her chest, every muscle in her body tense with conflicting impulses. Part of her wanted to grab Haley and run, to maintain the separation she had worked so hard to create. Part of her was cataloging the way Harold examined her daughter. Gentle but thorough. Patient but efficient. Speaking to Haley like she was a person worthy of respect, not just a small body to be diagnosed. He was good at this. Not just competent but genuinely gifted. The kind of doctor who made frightened children feel safe, who treated small patients with the same respect he might offer adults. This was not the Harold Robinson she remembered. That Harold had been charming but careless, privileged in ways he did not fully recognize. He had been comfortable with grand gestures but unreliable with steady presence. He had been the kind of man who swept you off your feet but forgot to catch you when you fell. This Harold was grounded. Attentive. Wholly focused on the child in front of him. "Can you open your mouth wide for me? Like a lion yawning?" Haley attempted a smile despite her fever. "Rawr. Perfect. That's excellent lion technique." Harold peered into her throat with a small flashlight, his expression professionally neutral. He checked her ears with an otoscope, felt the lymph nodes in her neck with gentle fingers, listened to her breathing with his stethoscope. "Can you take a deep breath for me? As big as you can." Haley inhaled dramatically, then coughed a little. "That was great. You're being very brave." Throughout the examination, Claudine noticed how Harold's hands moved with practiced ease. How he explained everything he was doing before he did it, so Haley was never surprised. How he asked permission before touching her, treating her autonomy as something that mattered. These were small things. Details that another observer might not notice. But Claudine had spent 7 years paying attention to details, looking for signs of danger, cataloging evidence of who people really were beneath their public faces. And what she saw in Harold's face was not manipulation or performance. It was genuine care. Professional competence infused with real compassion. It made her angry, somehow. Angry that he could be this good at caring for children when he had never been there to care for his own. "What's the verdict?" Claudine's voice cut through the gentle atmosphere Harold had created. "What's wrong with my daughter?" Harold straightened, directing his answer to Claudine while keeping his tone clinical. "Looks like a viral infection. Her ears are clear, throat is a little red but nothing concerning. No signs of anything bacterial. Kids this age, their immune systems are still learning how to fight things off. Sometimes they spike dramatic fevers that look scary but resolve quickly. So she'll be okay. She should be fine with rest, fluids, and children's ibuprofen for the fever. I want to run some blood work just to be thorough, make sure we're not missing anything. But I think this is going to resolve itself within a few days." The relief was so intense it made Claudine's knees weak. She gripped the edge of the examination table, letting the fear drain out of her, replaced by a different kind of tension. "Thank you." The words came out before she could stop them. "For being professional about this. She's a patient." Harold met her eyes, and she saw the turmoil churning beneath his clinical composure. "She deserves the best care regardless of anything else." "Mama?" Haley's voice cut through the weighted silence between them. "Is this doctor going to make me better?" "Yes, baby." Claudine smoothed her daughter's hair back from her forehead. "He's going to help you feel all better." "Good." Haley studied Harold with the discerning gaze of a child who had learned early to read adults carefully. Her eyes moved over his face with an intensity that made Claudine's heart stop. "You have nice eyes. They look like the eyes in Mama's old pictures." The world tilted on its axis. Claudine felt the blood drain from her face. Harold went perfectly still, his professional mask cracking. "What pictures?" Harold's voice was barely above a whisper. "The ones she keeps in her box." Haley seemed unaware of the bomb she was detonating. "The secret box in her closet that she thinks I don't know about. There's a man with eyes like yours." Claudine closed her eyes. 7 years of carefully guarded secrets, undone by a 7-year-old's observation and a fever that had stripped away her daughter's usual discretion. Haley paused, her brow furrowing with concentration. Her eyes moved from Harold to Claudine and back again, pieces clicking together in her young mind. Are you my daddy? The question hung in the air like a held breath. Like the moment before thunder follows lightning. Like every fear and hope Claudine had carried for 7 years, finally spoken aloud. Harold looked at Claudine. Not with accusation or anger, but with desperate, pleading hope. Silently asking permission to answer. Silently begging for the truth. Claudine gave the slightest nod. There was no point in lying now. The secret had found its way to the surface, the way secrets always did. Am I her father? Harold asked, his voice cracking on the words. Claudine, am I her father? Yes. The word came out like a stone dropped in still water. Yes, she's yours. Harold sat down hard in the room's single chair, his legs apparently refusing to hold him anymore. He stared at Haley with an expression of such devastated wonder that it hurt to witness. 7 years. His voice was raw, broken. I have a daughter, and I didn't know for 7 years. You left. Claudine's response was immediate, defensive. The words she had rehearsed in her mind countless times, finally given voice. You left without explanation, without goodbye. Your family's lawyer sent me a check and a non-disclosure agreement. I was supposed to disappear quietly, and I did. That's not what happened. Then what did happen, Harold? Claudine's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. Because from where I was standing, one day we were planning a future together, and the next day you were gone. No phone call. No letter. Just your father's attorney telling me I had 2 choices. Take the money and sign away my right to ever contact you again, or face the full legal weight of the Robinson family. I never sent anyone to you. Harold's voice was fierce, desperate. Claudine, I never sent that lawyer. I never knew about any check or any agreement. My father did that without my knowledge, without my consent. Then where were you? 7 years, Harold. Where the hell were you for 7 years? Switzerland. The word came out bitter, soaked in old pain. In a treatment facility my father told the world was a rehabilitation center but was actually more like a prison. 3 months of being told I was having a mental breakdown because I wanted to marry a woman my family didn't approve of. Claudine stared at him, her carefully constructed narrative of the past 7 years suddenly fracturing. Your father had you committed. He told me I was delusional for thinking our relationship was real. He brought in psychiatrists who said I was experiencing a psychotic break, that my feelings for you were symptoms of an underlying condition. They kept me medicated, disoriented. By the time I convinced them I was fine, 3 months had passed. And you never thought to contact me? Harold's laugh was hollow, devastated. I came back and you were gone. My father showed me documents, forged documents I now realize, showing that you had signed the agreement and cashed the check. He showed me bank records. He told me you had moved on, that you wanted nothing to do with me. I believed him because I was broken, Claudine. 3 months of having my reality questioned, 3 months of being told my own perceptions couldn't be trusted. I didn't know what was real anymore. Claudine absorbed this with visible struggle. The story she had told herself for 7 years, the narrative of abandonment that had fueled her survival, was cracking open to reveal something far more complicated beneath. Mama? Haley's small voice interrupted the adult chaos. Why are you both crying? Claudine hadn't realized she was. She wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand, struggling to maintain composure in front of her daughter. Sometimes adults have complicated feelings, baby. Claudine's voice was gentler than she felt. We're okay. We're just surprised. Is he really my daddy? Haley's eyes were fixed on Harold, assessing him with the serious consideration of a child making an important decision. The daddy from the pictures in the secret box. Harold looked at Claudine, waiting for permission to confirm what Haley had already figured out. Yes, Claudine said quietly. He's really your daddy. Haley was silent for a long moment, processing this information with the remarkable adaptability of children who had learned to handle complexity. Then she looked at Harold with an expression that was somehow both accusatory and hopeful. You were gone a really long time. I know. Harold's voice cracked on the words. I didn't know you existed, sweetheart. If I had known, I would have been here. I promise you, I would have been here. Mama said my daddy was lost. That's why she made up stories about him being a pilot or an explorer or a wizard. Because she didn't know how to explain why he wasn't here. Your mama was protecting you. Harold glanced at Claudine with something like gratitude. She did the right thing. She kept you safe and loved while I was gone. Are you going to stay now? Haley's voice carried an edge of suspicion she had inherited directly from her mother. Or are you going to get lost again? The question cut straight to the heart of everything. Harold met Claudine's eyes over Haley's head, understanding that his answer wasn't just for his daughter. It was for the woman he had loved and lost and never stopped hoping to find. I'm not going anywhere. Harold's voice was steady, certain. Not ever again. I know I have a lot to make up for. A lot of lost time that I can never get back. But if you'll let me, I want to be here for every moment from now on. Haley considered this with the seriousness of someone making a corporate decision. Then she nodded once, apparently satisfied. Okay. But you have to help me with math homework. Mama's good at reading stuff but not number stuff. Despite everything, despite the tears and the tension and the weight of 7 years pressing down on all of them, Claudine found herself fighting a smile. Her daughter. Negotiating the terms of a relationship with her long-lost father while running a fever of 104 degrees. Sometimes children saw more clearly than adults ever could. We should get you home to rest. Claudine gathered her composure, pulling them all back to practical matters. The doctor said you need fluids and sleep. I'll have the nurse bring the paperwork for the blood work. Harold stood, visibly struggling to transition back into professional mode. And I'll write a prescription for children's ibuprofen, though you can get it over the counter. He paused at the door, turning back to look at them. Mother and daughter. His family that he hadn't known existed. Can I see you again? The question was directed at both of them. Not as her doctor. As her father. As someone who wants to be part of your lives. Claudine's first instinct was to refuse. To maintain the walls she had built, the distance she had created. But she looked at Haley, saw the hope flickering in her daughter's fever-bright eyes, and knew she couldn't make this decision based solely on her own wounds. We need to talk first. Just the two of us. Claudine kept her voice neutral. Without her present. Of course. Whatever you need. Harold pulled out a prescription pad and scrawled his personal number on it. This is my cell. Not the clinic line. Call me whenever you're ready. Claudine took the paper, folded it carefully, and tucked it into her pocket. She gathered Haley in her arms, feeling her daughter's fever-warm body curl against her with complete trust. Get better, sweetheart. Harold's voice followed them to the door. I'll see you again soon. I promise. It was a promise Claudine had heard before, from this same man, 7 years ago. It had meant nothing then. Whether it meant something now remained to be seen. She carried Haley out of the clinic and into the Charleston morning, her mind racing with revelations that changed everything and nothing at the same time. Harold Robinson was back in her life. He was Haley's father. He claimed to have been imprisoned rather than abandoning her. And somehow, despite years of carefully constructed walls, Claudine felt the first terrifying stirrings of something she had forbidden herself to feel. Hope. She would believe it when she saw it. Until then, the walls stayed up, the boundaries remained firm, and she would continue being exactly what she had learned to be. A mother first. A woman second. A survivor always. The drive home was quiet. Haley drifted in and out of sleep in the back seat, exhausted by fever and the emotional weight of the morning's revelations. Claudine gripped the steering wheel with white-knuckled intensity, replaying the conversation in the examination room over and over in her mind. Harold had been committed. His father had forged documents. Everything she had believed about the past 7 years might be wrong. Or he was lying. People lied all the time, especially when confronted with children they hadn't known existed. Especially when faced with the consequences of their abandonment. But something in his voice, something in his devastated expression, made her pause. Made her wonder. When they reached home, Claudine carried Haley inside and settled her in bed with a glass of water and a dose of ibuprofen. She pulled the covers up to her daughter's chin and pressed a kiss to her forehead, which was still too warm but already feeling slightly cooler than it had that morning. Mama? Haley's voice was drowsy. Do you think he's telling the truth? About what, baby? About not knowing I existed. About wanting to stay. Claudine was quiet for a long moment, considering how to answer a question she didn't know the answer to herself. I think he believes he's telling the truth. I think he wants to be the father you deserve. Whether he can actually do that is something we'll have to wait and see. But you're going to let him try? The question cut to the heart of everything Claudine was struggling with. Her instinct was to protect. To shield Haley from the possibility of disappointment, from the pain of a father who might promise everything and deliver nothing. But looking at her daughter's hopeful eyes, Claudine knew she couldn't make that choice unilaterally. Haley deserved the chance to know her father. Deserved the opportunity to form her own opinion about who he was. I'm going to let him prove himself, Claudine said carefully. That's different from letting him try. Trying is just making effort. Proving is showing results. He's going to have to show us, that he's different from the man who disappeared 7 years ago. That seems fair. Haley yawned, her eyes drifting closed. You're really smart about people, Mama. I've had to be, baby. Now get some sleep. Claudine waited until Haley's breathing deepened into the rhythm of sleep, then slipped out of the room and pulled the door mostly closed behind her. In the kitchen, she made herself a cup of tea she didn't want, just to have something to do with her hands. The morning's events replayed in her mind on an endless loop. Harold's shocked face. Haley's innocent question. The collision of secrets and revelations that had upended everything she thought she knew. Her phone buzzed. A text from Elena, her best friend and the only person who knew the full truth about Haley's father. Haven't heard from you this morning. Everything okay? Claudine stared at the screen for a long moment, trying to figure out how to compress the past few hours into a text message. I took Haley to the clinic this morning. Fever. She's going to be fine. That's good. What aren't you telling me? Claudine took a breath, then typed the words that still felt impossible. Haley's doctor was Harold. Harold Robinson. He knows about Haley now. Her phone rang almost immediately. What do you mean Haley's doctor was Harold? Elena's voice was sharp with disbelief. The Harold? The one who vanished. The one whose family paid you off. That Harold. Claudine's voice was tired. He's a pediatrician now. He works at the Magnolia Clinic. I had no idea. And he saw Haley. He knows she's his. Haley told him herself. Apparently she's known about the photos I keep in my closet. She looked at him and asked if he was her daddy. Elena was silent for a long moment. Dear God. What did you do? What could I do? She asked the question directly. I wasn't going to lie to her face. I told him the truth. And how did he react? Like a man who just found out he has a daughter he never knew existed. He cried, Elena. Harold Robinson, heir to one of the oldest families in Charleston, sat down in a clinic chair and cried. Jesus. What happens now? He wants to see her again. Be part of her life. And what do you want? Claudine closed her eyes, leaning against the kitchen counter. I don't know. For 7 years, I've told myself he abandoned us. That he made a choice to leave. But he's telling a different story now. Says his father had him committed, forged documents making it look like I took money and signed away my rights. Says he came back looking for me and I was already gone. Do you believe him? I don't know, Claudine repeated. I don't know what to believe anymore. Do you want me to come over? Please. Claudine's voice cracked slightly. I don't think I can process this alone. I'm on my way. 20 minutes. Claudine ended the call and set her phone on the counter. Through the kitchen window, she could see the backyard where Haley played, the swing set they had installed 2 years ago, the garden where they grew tomatoes and herbs in the summer. She had built this life from nothing. From the ashes of abandonment and betrayal and a positive pregnancy test she had faced completely alone. She had worked double shifts at other people's restaurants until she could save enough to open her own. She had given Haley everything a child could need. Love, stability, a home that was full of warmth and safety. And now Harold Robinson wanted to walk into that life and claim a place in it. Part of Claudine wanted to slam the door in his face. To protect what she had built, to shield Haley from the possibility of another abandonment. But another part of her, a part she had tried very hard to bury, remembered the man Harold had been before everything fell apart. The man who had looked at her like she was the answer to every question he had ever asked. The man who had made her believe in fairy tales and happy endings. If his story was true. If his father really had manufactured their separation. Then Harold wasn't the villain she had made him in her mind for 7 years. And that changed everything. Elena arrived in 18 minutes instead of 20, bursting through the front door with the urgency of someone responding to a crisis. She found Claudine still in the kitchen, staring at a cup of tea that had gone cold. Tell me everything. Elena sat down at the kitchen table. From the beginning. So Claudine told her. The morning's panic. The race to the clinic. The shock of seeing Harold's face. The revelation that had tumbled out of Haley's innocent mouth. Harold's claims about his father. The devastation in his eyes when he realized he had a daughter. Elena listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from disbelief to concern to something that looked like cautious hope. "What are you thinking?" Claudine asked when she had finished. "I'm thinking that I want to kill Maxwell Robinson, even though he's already dead." Elena's voice was hard. "If what Harold is saying is true, that man destroyed 4 lives with his manipulation. Yours, Harold's, and Haley's. Not to mention his own. If it's true. Do you think he's lying?" Claudine was quiet for a moment. "No. That's the problem. When he was talking about the facility, about the forged documents, about coming back to find me gone. He wasn't performing. He was reliving it. I saw the pain in his face, Elena. That wasn't fake. So what does that mean? It means I've spent 7 years hating a man who might have been as much a victim as I was. It means my daughter's father isn't the monster I made him out to be. It means everything I thought I knew might be wrong." Elena reached across the table and took Claudine's hand. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know." Claudine's voice was tired. "Part of me wants to run. Take Haley and disappear again, somewhere he'll never find us. Protect what we have. And the other part? The other part wants to believe him. Wants to give Haley the father she deserves. Wants to see if the man Harold has become is someone I can trust with my daughter's heart." "And your heart?" Claudine pulled her hand away, wrapping both arms around herself. "My heart isn't part of this equation. This is about Haley. About what's best for her." Elena's expression said she didn't believe that for a second, but she wisely chose not to argue. "So what's the next step?" "I talked to him. Just the 2 of us. Get the full story, without Haley there to complicate things. And then I decide whether to let him prove himself or whether to maintain the distance I've built." "That sounds reasonable." Elena paused. "But Claudine, can I say something that might be hard to hear?" "Go ahead. You've spent 7 years surviving. Building walls. Protecting yourself and Haley from anyone who might hurt you. That was necessary. That kept you alive. But surviving isn't the same as living. And if Harold really is different now, if he really can be the father Haley needs, then keeping him out isn't protecting her anymore. It's punishing her for something that wasn't his fault." The words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples through everything Claudine thought she knew. "I'm not punishing anyone. Not intentionally. But sometimes the walls we build to keep danger out end up keeping everything out. Including the good things." Claudine didn't have a response to that. So she changed the subject, asking Elena about her own life, her work, anything to avoid examining the uncomfortable truth her friend had just spoken. But later that night, after Elena had left and Haley was sleeping soundly, her fever finally breaking, Claudine sat alone in her bedroom and pulled out the box she kept hidden in her closet. The box Haley apparently knew about. The secret that wasn't as secret as she had thought. Inside were photos. Letters. Ticket stubs for movies they had seen together. A dried flower from a bouquet he had given her on their first anniversary. The physical evidence of a love she had tried to bury but couldn't quite bring herself to destroy. She looked at Harold's face in those photos. Younger, lighter, unmarked by whatever had happened to him in that facility. He was smiling in every picture, looking at her with an expression of pure adoration. This was the man she had loved. The man she had believed she would marry. The man who had shattered her world by disappearing. But what if he hadn't disappeared by choice? What if he had been taken, imprisoned, lied to? What if he had spent 7 years grieving a loss as profound as her own? Claudine put the photos away and closed the box. Then she pulled out her phone and looked at the number Harold had given her. She didn't call. Not yet. But she saved the number in her contacts under a single letter. H. The first step in what might become something she wasn't ready to name. I need to pause here because we have reached a crucial turning point in this story. For 7 years, Claudine believed she knew the truth. She believed Harold had abandoned her, had chosen money and status over love, had written her off with a check and never looked back. But now she's learning that the truth might be far more complicated. That the man she hated might have been suffering just as much as she was. That their separation wasn't a choice either of them made, but a manipulation orchestrated by someone with more power than compassion. This changes everything. And yet it changes nothing. Because trust, once broken, can't be rebuilt with explanations. It can only be rebuilt with consistent action over time. If you've ever been hurt by someone you trusted. If you've ever wondered whether forgiveness was weakness or strength. If you've ever had to decide whether to risk your heart again after it had been shattered. Then you understand exactly what Claudine is feeling right now. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Does Harold deserve a second chance? Do you believe people can truly change? I want to hear your thoughts. And if you're not already subscribed to Mr. Dawson's Stories, hit that subscribe button now. Because the next part of this story, the journey from broken to healing, is where everything transforms. Now let's continue and see what happens when Claudine decides to give Harold one chance to prove he's different. 3 days passed before Claudine found the courage to call. Haley's fever had broken completely by the second day, her energy returning with the resilience that only children possess. She asked about the doctor with the nice eyes exactly 7 times, each question a small needle in Claudine's already conflicted heart. On the third night, after Haley was asleep and the house was quiet, Claudine sat on her bed with her phone in her hand. The contact labeled H stared back at her. A single letter representing a lifetime of unresolved history. She pressed call before she could talk herself out of it. He answered on the second ring. Claudine. Her name came out like a prayer, like he had been holding his breath for 3 days waiting for this moment. How is Haley? She's better. Fever broke yesterday. She's back to her usual self. Good. That's good. He paused. Thank you for calling. I wasn't sure you would. Neither was I. Claudine's voice was steady despite the trembling in her chest. We need to talk, Harold. Really talk. Without Haley present. Name the time and place. I'll be there. Saturday morning. There's a coffee shop on King Street called the Morning Pour. 10 o'clock. I know the place. I'll be there early. Harold. Claudine's voice carried a warning. This isn't a reconciliation. This is an interrogation. I need to understand what happened 7 years ago before I can even consider letting you into her life. I understand. His voice was serious, matching her tone. I'll answer every question you have. No matter how painful. You deserve the truth. We'll see. She ended the call without saying goodbye. Then she sat in the darkness of her bedroom, heart pounding, wondering what she had just set in motion. Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that made Charleston feel like a postcard. Golden light filtered through the trees as Claudine walked toward the Morning Pour, her steps measured and deliberate. She had dressed carefully, choosing clothes that projected confidence without appearing to try too hard. Navy blouse. Dark jeans. The gold earrings her grandmother had left her. Armor. That's what it was. Armor for a battle she wasn't sure she wanted to fight. Harold was already there when she arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee in front of him. He stood when he saw her, the gesture old-fashioned and oddly touching. You remembered how I take it. Claudine looked at the coffee he had ordered for her. Dark roast, 1 sugar, splash of oat milk. I remember everything about you. Harold's voice was quiet. Every conversation we ever had. Every dream you shared with me. Every way I failed to be what you needed. Then let's start there. Claudine sat down across from him, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. Let's start with how you failed. Harold nodded, accepting the challenge. He took a breath that seemed to come from somewhere deep, somewhere he had kept locked away for a long time. I told my father I was going to marry you. The words came out steady but heavy. 3 months before you discovered you were pregnant, though I didn't know about that then. I told him I had found the woman I wanted to spend my life with, and I was going to propose. What did he say? He laughed at first. Thought I was joking. When he realized I was serious, his whole demeanor changed. He told me I was throwing away everything our family had built. That you were unsuitable. That word exactly. Unsuitable. Like you were a job applicant who didn't meet the qualifications. Claudine's jaw tightened. I remember your family's opinions about me. It wasn't your background, though that's what they claimed. It was the fact that you challenged me. You made me question things I had always accepted. The way our family treated people. The way we used money as power. The way I had been raised to believe I was better than others simply because of the name I was born with. You saw through all of that. And my father couldn't stand it. So he had you committed. Not immediately. First he tried other tactics. Threatening to cut me off financially. Having my mother plead with me about tradition and legacy. Bringing in old family friends to remind me of my obligations. When none of that worked, he arranged an intervention. Harold's voice grew bitter on the word. He told me we were going to a family retreat to discuss the situation calmly. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think my father might actually try to understand. Instead, I woke up in a facility in Switzerland with doctors telling me I was experiencing a psychotic break. Claudine stared at him. How is that even possible? You can't just commit someone without cause. You can when you have enough money and the right connections. The facility was private, exclusive. The kind of place that caters to wealthy families who want inconvenient relatives to disappear for a while. My father had documentation prepared. Statements from supposed witnesses claiming I had been behaving erratically. A family psychiatrist who had never actually examined me but was willing to sign whatever paperwork was put in front of him. And you just went along with it? I was drugged. Harold's voice cracked. They gave me something in the car on the way there. I woke up disoriented, confused. They kept me sedated for the first week. By the time my head cleared enough to fight back, I had been there for a month and every attempt to leave was treated as evidence of my supposed instability. Claudine was quiet for a long moment, absorbing this. It sounded like something from a Gothic novel. Impossible, dramatic, the kind of thing that happened to other people in other centuries. But she had seen Harold's face when he talked about it. The trauma was real. The pain was genuine. How did you get out? I stopped fighting. Played along with their program. Told them I had realized my relationship with you was a symptom of my underlying issues. Agreed that I needed to focus on my responsibilities to my family. Basically, I told them everything they wanted to hear until they believed I was recovered. And then you came looking for me. The day I was released. I went straight to your apartment. It was empty. Your phone was disconnected. I tried your job, your friends, everyone I could think of. Nobody knew where you were, or if they did, they weren't telling me. Some of them knew. Claudine's voice was quiet. I asked them not to say anything. I didn't want to be found. I know that now. Harold's eyes were bright with unshed tears. But at the time, all I knew was that you were gone. And my father showed me the documents. The non-disclosure agreement with your signature. The bank records showing the deposit of $500,000 into an account in your name. $500,000. Claudine's voice was flat. He told me it was $50,000. That's what the lawyer offered. My father added zeros to make the story more convincing. Made it look like you had negotiated for more. Sold me out for serious money rather than just taking what was offered. The manipulation was so elaborate, so calculated, that Claudine found herself almost admiring it in a horrified way. Maxwell Robinson had thought of everything. Why did you believe him? The question came out harsher than she intended. You knew me, Harold. You knew I wouldn't sell out for any amount of money. How could you believe I would just disappear? Because I was broken. Harold's voice was raw. 3 months of being told my own perception of reality was faulty. 3 months of medication and therapy designed to make me doubt everything I felt. By the time I got out, I didn't trust my own judgment anymore. And when my father showed me those documents, some part of me thought maybe he was right. Maybe I had imagined how much you loved me. Maybe I had been delusional about all of it. And you just gave up. No. I kept looking for 2 years. Hired private investigators. Searched social media. Followed every lead I could find. But you had done exactly what my father wanted. You had disappeared so completely that I couldn't find you. Claudine thought about those years. The deliberate anonymity. The choice to rebuild in a city where nobody knew her history. The way she had erased every connection to her old life, including the digital ones. She had been running from Harold. But in the end, she had been running from a man who wasn't even chasing her. What made you stop looking? When my father died. Harold's voice was flat. 3 years ago. Heart attack. He went quickly, which was more mercy than he deserved. I heard about that. Claudine remembered seeing the obituary, remembered the complicated surge of emotions it had triggered. After he was gone, I found his files. All of them. The real documentation of what he had done. The payments to the facility. The forged signatures. Everything. And I realized that even if I found you, even if I explained everything, too much time had passed. Too much damage had been done. I thought the kindest thing I could do was let you live your life in peace, without me showing up to disrupt whatever you had built. So you became a pediatrician instead. I went to medical school because I needed something to focus on. Something meaningful. I chose pediatrics because I kept thinking about the children I might have had. The family I would never have. I thought if I couldn't be a father, I could at least help other people's children be healthy and safe. His eyes met hers across the table, carrying all the weight of 7 years of parallel grief. And then you walked into my examination room. With a little girl who has my eyes. And I realized that everything I thought I knew was wrong. That there had been a child all along. That you hadn't moved on at all. That you had been surviving, alone, raising my daughter without any help from me. Claudine was quiet for a long time after he finished. The coffee in front of her had gone cold. The cafe bustled around them, other customers living their ordinary Saturday mornings, oblivious to the extraordinary conversation happening in the corner. I don't know what to do with this information, she finally said. For 7 years, I hated you. That hatred gave me fuel. It helped me survive. When things were hard, when I was exhausted, when I wanted to give up, I told myself I would prove you wrong. I would build a life without you. I would be everything you didn't think I could be. And you did. Harold's voice was filled with something that sounded like admiration. I looked you up, Claudine. After that day in the clinic. You own a restaurant. You employ people. You raised an incredible daughter. You did all of that on your own. So if I let go of the hatred now, if I accept that you weren't the villain I made you, I don't know who I am anymore. My entire identity has been built around surviving what you did to me. And now you're telling me you didn't do it. Your father did. Claudine. Harold reached across the table but didn't touch her, leaving his hand open in the space between them. An invitation, not a demand. You don't have to let go of anything. You don't have to forgive me for things that were out of my control, or even for things that weren't. I'm not here to ask for your forgiveness or your love. I'm here to ask for access to my daughter. To be part of Haley's life. That's all. Whatever happens between us, that's secondary to her. It was the right thing to say. And somehow, that made it harder. If I let you into her life and you disappear again, for whatever reason, it will destroy her. You understand that, right? She's already attached to the idea of you. She's been imagining a father her whole life. If you show up and then leave, you won't just be breaking her heart. You'll be confirming every fear she's ever had about not being enough for people to stay. I understand. Harold's voice was fierce. And I swear to you, I am not going anywhere. I will do whatever you require. Supervised visits, scheduled calls, background checks, therapy, whatever proves to you that I am committed. I will earn this, Claudine. Day by day, action by action. I will prove that I can be trusted. It's going to take time. I have time. All of it. However much you need. Claudine studied his face, looking for the cracks that would reveal this was a performance. Looking for the signs of the careless young man she had known, the one who made grand promises without understanding the weight of them. She didn't find him. The man in front of her was different. Older, yes, but more than that. Tempered by something. Shaped by loss and regret into someone who understood that words were cheap and actions were everything. Once a month, she said finally. You can visit once a month. Supervised by me. If you're consistent for 3 months, we can talk about increasing the frequency. Thank you. The words came out thick with emotion. Thank you, Claudine. Don't thank me yet. This isn't forgiveness. This is a trial period. You're on probation. One wrong move, one broken promise, one sign that you're not as committed as you claim, and this ends. Immediately. Permanently. I understand. And Harold? Claudine's voice carried the steel she had forged over 7 years of single motherhood. If you break her heart, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your life. That's not a threat. That's a promise. I would expect nothing less. Harold met her eyes without flinching. You're protecting your daughter. That's exactly what a good mother should do. And I will spend however long it takes proving that I'm worthy of being her father. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything spoken and unspoken hanging between them. There's something else, Claudine added. She doesn't know the full story yet. About you, about why you weren't there. Right now, all she knows is that you're her father and you didn't know she existed. When she's older, when she can understand, we can explain more. But for now, I'm not telling her about your father's manipulation or the facility or any of that. That's your decision to make. It's the right decision for a 7-year-old. She doesn't need to carry that weight. She just needs to know that her father wants to be part of her life now. Harold nodded. Whatever you think is best. You know her. I'm just learning. It was the right answer. Again. Claudine was beginning to find his right answers suspicious, but she couldn't identify anything specifically wrong with them. I should go. She stood, gathering her things. Haley is with Elena, and I don't want to be gone too long. Of course. Harold stood as well, the same old-fashioned gesture as before. Can I call during the week? Just to check in. One call. Wednesday evening. 15 minutes maximum. And I'll be listening. That's more than fair. Claudine walked toward the door, then paused and turned back. Harold. Why pediatrics specifically? You could have done anything with your education. Why children? Because every time I examined a child, I imagined what my own children might look like. What they might need. What kind of father I might have been if I'd had the chance. His voice carried the weight of years of longing. I was preparing, I think. Even though I believed I would never have children of my own. Some part of me was preparing for them anyway. Claudine didn't respond. She turned and walked out of the cafe, into the golden Charleston morning, her heart a complicated tangle of emotions she wasn't ready to name. The following weeks established a careful rhythm. Harold called on Wednesday evenings, exactly as agreed. The first call was awkward, stilted, both of them overly aware of Claudine listening from across the room. But Haley, bless her, had none of her mother's caution. She chattered about school, about her friends, about the elaborate fantasy kingdom she was building with paper and markers and dreams. By the third week, the calls had found their footing. Harold asked about Haley's day with genuine interest. He remembered details from previous conversations and asked follow-up questions. He treated her opinions as worthy of serious consideration, even when those opinions involved the political alliances of imaginary dragons. He sent a gift after the second week. Not something expensive or showy, but a book about famous architects from around the world. A note inside read, "Your mom told me you like buildings. I thought you might enjoy this." Haley was thrilled. She pored over the pages, pointing out her favorites, explaining in detail why the Sydney Opera House was structurally brilliant and why she planned to design something even better someday. He pays attention, Elena observed during one of her visits. She had been watching the gradual integration with cautious optimism. That's not nothing, Claudine. It's been 3 weeks. Claudine's voice was guarded. Anyone can pay attention for 3 weeks. True. But most people don't. Most people, especially men who suddenly discover they have children, either go overboard with guilt presents or fade away when the novelty wears off. He's doing neither. It's still early. Elena didn't argue, but her expression suggested she thought Claudine was being deliberately pessimistic. The first in-person visit happened at the end of the month, exactly as scheduled. Harold arrived at 10 in the morning with a small bouquet of sunflowers for the table and a sketchbook for Haley. The sketchbook had dragons embossed on the cover, purple dragons specifically, because Haley had mentioned in one of their phone calls that purple was the superior dragon color. How did you know about the purple dragons? Haley asked, clutching the sketchbook to her chest. You told me. Harold crouched to her level, a habit Claudine had noticed in the examination room that apparently extended to all his interactions with children. 3 Wednesdays ago. You said the dragons in your kingdom were purple because that's the most powerful color. You remembered. I remember everything you tell me. Harold's voice was gentle but serious. Because everything you say matters. Haley considered this for a moment, then nodded with satisfaction. Okay. Do you want to see my room? I have drawings of the whole kingdom on my wall. I would love to see your room. Harold looked at Claudine for permission. If that's okay with your mom. Go ahead. Claudine kept her voice neutral. I'll make some coffee. She listened from the kitchen as Haley gave Harold the full tour. This is the capital city. This is where the Dragon Queen lives. This is the merchant district where they sell cloud cakes and star crystals. Harold asked questions about trade routes and political systems, treating Haley's fantasy world like it was a real place worth understanding. He's not talking down to her. Elena had appeared beside Claudine, keeping her voice low. That's remarkable for an adult who just met a kid. He does it professionally. Claudine's response was more defensive than she intended. It's probably just habit. Sure. Elena's tone said she didn't believe that for a second. The visit lasted 4 hours. They had lunch together, sandwiches that Haley insisted on helping to make. They played a board game that Haley won, though Claudine suspected Harold had been strategically bad. They looked through the architecture book together, Haley explaining which buildings she would redesign and how. By the time Harold left, Haley was talking about him like he was already part of her life. He knows so much about buildings, she told Claudine over dinner that evening. He said if I keep drawing and learning, I could really be an architect someday. He's right. You could be anything you want to be. He's going to come back, right? Haley's voice carried an edge of anxiety. He's not going to disappear again. Claudine's heart clenched. This was exactly what she had feared. The attachment forming before trust was established. He says he'll be back next month. But do you believe him? I believe he wants to come back. Claudine chose her words carefully. And so far, he's done everything he said he would do. That's not the same as definitely. You're right. It's not. But sometimes, baby, that's all we have. People's intentions and their track record. We have to watch and see if their actions match their words. Haley was quiet for a moment. Do you like him? The question hit Claudine unexpectedly. She had been so focused on whether Harold was trustworthy, whether he was safe, whether he was good for Haley, that she hadn't allowed herself to think about whether she liked him. He seems different from what I expected, Claudine said finally. When I knew him before, a long time ago, he was different. Less serious. Less careful. Now he seems like someone who has learned some hard lessons. Is that good or bad? I'm not sure yet. But I think it might be good. Haley nodded, apparently satisfied with this answer. Then she changed the subject to the absolutely critical matter of which dragon color should be allowed in the royal court, and Claudine let herself be swept into her daughter's world, grateful for the distraction from her own complicated thoughts. The months accumulated like pages in a book, each one adding new chapters to the story they were writing together. Harold visited every month without exception. When business tried to interfere with a scheduled trip, he rearranged the business. When weather threatened to ground his flights, he drove through the night to arrive on time. When he caught a cold that left him barely able to speak, he showed up anyway with a bag of cough drops and a whispered apology. He's committed, Elena observed after the 4th month. I'll give him that. He's consistent, Claudine corrected. Commitment takes longer to prove. But even as she said it, she felt her walls beginning to shift. Not crumble, not yet, but definitely shift. The phone calls increased to twice a week. Then 3 times. Haley started saving stories from school specifically to tell Harold, beginning sentences with "wait until I tell my dad" before catching herself and glancing at Claudine for confirmation that this was okay. It was okay. More than okay. Claudine watched her daughter bloom in ways she hadn't anticipated, a new confidence emerging from knowing that both her parents wanted her. In the 5th month, Harold made an announcement. They were sitting on Claudine's porch after dinner, Haley inside finishing homework, the evening air soft with the promise of approaching spring. I've been thinking about the future, Harold said carefully. About how to make this more sustainable. What do you mean? The traveling. Flying down here once or twice a month, it's wonderful, but it's not enough. Haley is growing so fast. Every time I see her, she's changed. And I'm missing all the moments in between. Claudine felt her chest tighten. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to be closer. I'm looking at options for relocating some of my work here. Opening a satellite office. Finding a way to spend more time in Charleston. That's a significant change. She's worth significant changes. Harold met her eyes directly. You both are. Claudine wasn't sure how to respond to that. The you both hit her somewhere she wasn't prepared to be hit. I'm not asking for anything, Harold continued. From you, I mean. Personally. I know that ship has probably sailed. But professionally, practically, I can restructure my practice. I can be here more. I can be the kind of father who shows up for soccer games and school plays and random Tuesday afternoons. Harold. Claudine's voice was careful. That's a major life decision. You shouldn't make it impulsively. It's not impulsive. I've been thinking about it for months. Running the numbers. Talking to colleagues who might take over parts of my practice. This isn't a grand gesture designed to impress you. This is a practical plan designed to put me in the same city as my daughter. And if things don't work out. If something goes wrong and we're both stuck in Charleston with awkward history between us. Then we're 2 adults who co-parent from different households in the same city. It's not ideal, but it's better than what we have now. Better than me being a face on a screen and a visitor every few weeks. Claudine was quiet for a long moment, processing. Part of her wanted to object, to slow things down, to maintain the careful distance that kept her protected. But another part, a part that had been growing stronger over 5 months of watching Harold prove himself, recognized that this was exactly what she had asked for. Actions. Not words. Concrete changes that demonstrated commitment. If you're serious about this, Claudine said finally, then I need you to understand something. This isn't just about you and Haley anymore. If you're in Charleston permanently, you're in our lives permanently. That means navigating all of it. The complicated parts. The parts where we have to figure out how to be around each other as co-parents, maybe eventually as friends. I understand. Do you? Because right now, everything is structured. Scheduled. Boundaried. If you move here, those boundaries get messy. We'll run into each other at grocery stores. We'll see each other at school events. We'll have to figure out holidays and birthdays and what happens when Haley wants both of us at the same time. I want all of that. Harold's voice was intense. The messy parts. The complicated parts. The parts that feel like real family instead of scheduled visitation. I want to be her father in the ordinary moments, not just the special occasions. Then do it. Claudine heard herself say the words before she fully decided to say them. Move here. Open your practice. Be part of her life in all the ways you're describing. But Harold, if you do this and then change your mind, if you decide Charleston is boring or fatherhood is inconvenient or some opportunity calls you back to a life that doesn't include us, the damage will be catastrophic. Not just to her. To me too. Because I'm trusting you now. Really trusting you. And that's not something I do easily anymore. I know. Harold reached out and took her hand, the first physical contact between them since before Haley was born. I know what you're risking. And I swear to you, I will not waste it. Claudine looked at their joined hands, at the connection she had told herself she would never allow again. Something in her chest cracked open. Not broken. Just open. Making space. Okay, she said quietly. Okay. We're approaching the moment that will define everything. For months now, Harold has been proving himself. Showing up consistently. Putting in the work. Becoming the father Haley deserves and the man Claudine never expected him to become. He's moving to Charleston. He's restructuring his entire life to be close to his daughter. Every action he takes says the same thing. I'm here. I'm staying. I mean it. But there's still one more piece of the puzzle. One more truth that needs to be spoken. Haley knows Harold is her father. But she doesn't know the full story. She doesn't know about the love that existed before she was born. She doesn't understand that her parents might be more than just co-parents. That underneath all the careful boundaries, something else might be growing. If you've ever watched two people dance around the obvious. If you've ever hoped that broken things could be made whole. If you've ever believed that second chances were real for those brave enough to take them. Then you understand what's about to happen. Like this video right now if you're ready for this moment. Share it with someone who needs to believe that the walls we build to protect ourselves don't have to be permanent. Let's see how this story ends. 3 weeks after Harold's announcement about moving, Claudine found herself sitting on her porch at midnight, unable to sleep. The move was happening. Harold had found a house in Charleston, close enough to be present but far enough to maintain appropriate boundaries. He was transitioning his practice, bringing on partners to handle the work he was leaving behind. Everything was falling into place with the kind of efficiency that suggested he had been planning this for longer than he admitted. And Claudine didn't know how she felt about any of it. For 5 months, she had told herself that her only concern was Haley. Haley's well-being. Haley's relationship with her father. Haley's need for stability and consistency. But sitting alone in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the Charleston night, Claudine couldn't maintain that fiction anymore. She had feelings for Harold. Still. Again. She wasn't sure which. Watching him with Haley had reawakened something she had buried 7 years ago. The way he listened. The way he engaged. The way he treated their daughter like she was the most important person in any room. This was the man she had fallen in love with, refined by years of loss and regret into someone more patient, more present, more worthy of trust. And that terrified her. The phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Harold. Can't sleep either. She smiled despite herself and typed back. How did you know I was awake? Lucky guess. Or maybe we're still connected in ways neither of us understands. That's very philosophical for midnight. Insomnia makes me contemplative. Can I call you? Claudine hesitated. Phone calls in the middle of the night felt intimate in a way that scheduled visits and supervised interactions did not. They felt like something couples did. Something people who cared about each other in complicated ways did. She pressed call anyway. Hi. Harold's voice was soft, warm, carrying the particular quality of late-night honesty. Thanks for picking up. I was already awake. Might as well have company. What's keeping you up? Claudine considered lying. Considered maintaining the careful boundaries that had protected her for months. Instead, she told the truth. You are. This situation. Everything that's changing. Good keeping up or bad keeping up. Both. All of it at once. Harold was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something? That depends on what it is. I never stopped loving you. Harold's voice was steady but thick with emotion. I know I have no right to say that. I know the boundaries we've established are there for good reasons. But sitting here at midnight, knowing I'm about to upend my entire life to be closer to you and Haley, I can't pretend anymore. I love you. I've loved you since we were 22 and stupid and planning a future neither of us got to have. I loved you through 3 months in that facility and 2 years of searching and all the years after when I thought I'd never see you again. And I love you now, watching you be the most incredible mother I've ever seen, watching you protect our daughter with everything you have, watching you slowly, cautiously, let me back in. Claudine's breath caught in her chest. For a long moment, she couldn't speak. Harold, she finally managed. That's not a small thing to say. I know. And I'm not expecting you to say it back. I'm not expecting anything. I just needed you to know. Because I'm moving here. I'm going to be part of your life in ways that go beyond co-parenting. And if I'm going to do that, I need to be honest about what's in my heart. I need you to know that every time I see you, every time we're in the same room, I'm not just thinking about Haley. I'm thinking about you. About us. About what we might have been and what we might still be. I don't know if I can do this again. Claudine's voice was barely a whisper. Letting someone in. Trusting that they won't leave. I spent 7 years teaching myself to be complete alone. I don't know how to unlearn that. I'm not asking you to unlearn it. I'm not asking for anything, really. I'm just telling you the truth. What you do with that truth is entirely up to you. Claudine was quiet for a long time, the phone pressed against her ear, the night air soft around her. I feel things, she said finally. For you. I don't know how to name them yet. They're mixed up with old pain and new hope and fear and something else I can't identify. But they're there. You should know that. That's more than I dared hope for. Harold's voice cracked slightly. Thank you for telling me. Don't thank me yet. Feelings aren't the same as decisions. And I have a daughter to think about. I know. He paused. But Claudine, whatever you decide about us, about the possibility of us, I want you to know that it won't change my commitment to Haley. I'm not offering to be her father as a strategy to win you back. She's not leverage. She's my daughter. And I will be here for her regardless of what happens between you and me. That's exactly the right thing to say. It's also true. Which helps. Claudine laughed despite herself. The first genuine laugh they had shared in 7 years. Go to sleep, Harold. It's late. You too. Sweet dreams, Claudine. Good night. She ended the call and sat in the darkness for a while longer, feeling the walls around her heart shift just a little more. Harold's move to Charleston happened 3 weeks later. His new house was a craftsman-style bungalow in a neighborhood not far from Claudine's. Close enough to be present, far enough to be appropriate. He had a guest room that he referred to as Haley's room, though they had not yet discussed overnight visits. Haley was thrilled by the development. Does this mean I get to see you all the time now? She asked Harold the first time she visited his new house. Not just on special days. That's the plan. Harold crouched to her level, as he always did. I want to be here for the ordinary days too. The homework and the soccer practice and the random Tuesday afternoons. Mama says you're going to be at my school stuff now. The recitals and parent things. I'm going to try to be at everything. Sometimes I might have to work, but I'll be there as much as I possibly can. Haley considered this, then nodded with satisfaction. Good. Because other kids have dads at those things. Now I will too. The words hit Harold visibly, a wave of emotion crossing his face before he contained it. Yes, you will. Claudine watched from the doorway, feeling something complex and hopeful stir in her chest. The weeks that followed were a careful negotiation of boundaries and possibilities. Harold came to dinner twice a week. Claudine found herself cooking things she remembered he liked, then catching herself and making something neutral instead. They helped Haley with homework together, sitting on opposite sides of the kitchen table like they were co-workers rather than former lovers who had never quite stopped loving each other. But underneath the careful propriety, something was shifting. Claudine noticed the way Harold looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. She caught herself looking at him the same way. Their hands brushed over past dishes, and neither of them pulled away as quickly as they should have. You're falling for him again, Elena observed during one of their coffee dates. And before you deny it, remember that I've known you for 15 years and you're terrible at hiding your feelings. I'm not falling for anyone. Claudine's protest sounded weak even to her own ears. Right. That's why you spend an hour getting dressed before he comes over for dinner. That's why you laugh at his jokes in a way you don't laugh at anyone else's. That's why you watch him with Haley like you're seeing something that fixes a broken part of you. It's complicated. It's only complicated if you make it complicated. He loves you. You love him. You have a child together. He's moved his entire life to be near you. At some point, you have to ask yourself whether protecting yourself is still serving you, or whether it's just keeping you from being happy. Claudine didn't have a response to that. The truth of it was too obvious to argue with. The breaking point came on a Saturday evening in late spring. Haley was at a sleepover with a school friend, the first night she had spent away from Claudine in months. The house felt empty without her, quiet in a way that made Claudine restless. Her phone buzzed. Harold. Haley texted me that she got to her friend's house safely. Thought you'd want to know. Thanks. I got the same text. Complete with 7 exclamation points and a dragon emoji. That sounds like our daughter. Our daughter. The word still felt new, even after all these months. Want some company? Harold's next text arrived before she could respond to the first. I'm home alone and the quiet is strange. We could watch a movie. Nothing complicated. Just 2 adults who don't know what to do when their kid is elsewhere. Claudine should have said no. Should have maintained the boundaries that had protected her. Instead, she typed back, bring popcorn. Harold arrived 20 minutes later with popcorn, a selection of movies, and the nervous energy of someone who knew this evening was different from their usual structured interactions. They sat on opposite ends of the couch at first. Safe distance. Appropriate boundaries. But as the movie progressed, the distance shrank. Shoulders touched. Then arms. By the climax of the film, Claudine realized she was leaning against Harold's chest, his arm around her shoulders, their bodies curved together like they had been made to fit. The movie ended. Neither of them moved. This isn't part of our co-parenting arrangement, Claudine said quietly. No. Harold's voice rumbled in his chest. It's not. What is it, then? I don't know. He turned slightly, enough to meet her eyes. What do you want it to be? Claudine looked at this man who had once been the love of her life. Who had been taken from her by forces beyond both their control. Who had spent 7 years becoming someone worthy of the chance she had given him. I want to stop being afraid, she said. I want to believe that this is real. That you're real. That we could be something again without it destroying me if it falls apart. I can't promise you nothing will ever go wrong. Harold's hand came up to cup her face, gentle as a breath. Life doesn't work that way. But I can promise you that I will be here. Through the hard parts. Through the scary parts. Through whatever challenges come our way. I'm not leaving again, Claudine. Not ever. Then kiss me. The words escaped before she could stop them. Before I talk myself out of this. He did. And in that kiss was everything. 7 years of longing. 7 years of survival. 7 years of parallel grief that was finally ending. When they broke apart, Claudine was crying. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of letting go. I love you, she said. I think I never stopped. I think I just buried it so deep I forgot it was there. I love you too. Harold pulled her closer, holding her like she was something precious he had almost lost forever. I have always loved you. I will always love you. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other, letting the walls finally come down completely. The story doesn't end there. Real stories never do. They continue, evolve, face new challenges. But Claudine, Harold, and Haley faced them together now. Haley learned about her parents' relationship with the unflappable acceptance of a child who had always secretly hoped for exactly this outcome. Does this mean we're a real family now? She asked the morning after Claudine and Harold told her they were together. We've always been a real family, Claudine replied. Now we're just a family that lives in the same house. The wedding happened a year later. Small, intimate, held in the backyard of the house they had purchased together. Haley served as flower girl and ring bearer and officiator of several stern warnings to both parents about never getting lost from each other again. Do you promise to stay together forever? She asked during the ceremony, in a portion of the vows she had insisted on adding herself. We promise, Claudine and Harold said in unison. Good. Because I don't want to do this again. Weddings are a lot of work. The guests laughed. The parents smiled at each other. And somehow, despite everything, they had found their way to the ending they had been promised 7 years ago. Not the same ending. Better. Earned through pain and growth and the slow, patient work of becoming people worthy of each other. And so we reach the end of this story. But not really the end. Because real stories continue. They face new challenges. They write new chapters. Claudine, Harold, and Haley will have struggles ahead. Everyone does. But they'll face them together now. As a family built not just on blood, but on choice. On the daily decision to show up, to be present, to love even when it's hard. This story started with a mother rushing her sick daughter to a clinic, terrified and alone. It led to the most unexpected reunion imaginable. Coming face to face with the man who had broken her heart 7 years ago. But it became something else entirely. It became a story about second chances. About the difference between the people we were and the people we can become. About the courage it takes to trust again after betrayal. About building a family not just from biology, but from consistent, patient, unwavering commitment. Claudine survived the worst thing that ever happened to her. She built an empire from nothing. She raised an incredible daughter on her own. And then she did the bravest thing of all. She let someone back in. If this story moved you. If it made you believe, even for a moment, that broken things can be healed. If it reminded you that your worst chapter doesn't have to be your final chapter. Then do me 3 favors. First, hit that like button. Every like tells the algorithm that stories like this matter. That people want content with heart, with meaning, with hope. Second, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's struggling. Someone who's survived something terrible. Someone who's wondering if second chances are real. Third, subscribe to Mr. Dawson's Stories if you haven't already. I'm building a community of people who believe in the power of storytelling to change lives. I want you to be part of it. Drop a comment below and tell me what part of this story hit you the hardest. I read every single comment, and I want to hear from you. Until next time, remember this. Survival is not the destination. It's just the beginning. The real journey is learning to thrive. This is Mr. Dawson, reminding you that your story isn't over yet.